Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to today's upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? All right, so today's upload is going to be a lot of information pushed into a 1 hour upload. We're going to go from literally experiences out of Pope Lick, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. I've got an experience out of Duncan, Vancouver Island, British Columbia. I want to talk about the kind of one world government Luciferian agenda, alien/demon, just a lot of information. And I want to come up with a little name for all of that information, the, deep underground bases, Luciferian agenda, demon, alien. It's all connected. It all should kind of fall under one umbrella. And, it's quite interesting that I was thinking about this. If you met one person, let's say you met one person today, and throughout your conversation, you said, or you were talking about something along the lines of the Luciferian agenda, how the government agreed to trade human lives for military secrets. People would ask, why would our government do that? And some may even just say, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it, and not ask any further. But it was not, it was and it wasn't the elected officials. They are pawns, and that actually is deeper than you think. The 13 families are the ones who essentially work hand in hand with the Draco, the Luciferian agenda, the alien/demons. That 13 family, the, Illuminati. The real Illuminati, not the YouTube, TikTok Illuminati featuring Jay-Z and Beyonce because they went like this, Truman, Eisenhower, and anyone else that were involved in those trade deals, they were pawns, yes. They were puppets, yes. But not for any other reason except in case shit went sideways. Because you're not going to have the 13 families of the Illuminati sitting in front of some, world court. You'll have Truman, Eisenhower, and anyone else, but you ain't going to have those those families. So they needed that pawn, that kind of scapegoat. And that's why they used them. So let me jump into some very strange information. So I guess we'll start off with something that going through the information that I have, I always knew, and we always kind of knew something with the Iraq wars was something more than what they told us. It was something much more in depth than weapons of mass destruction or, just any kind of weapons that it wasn't. And it was not about terrorism. It was not about 9/11 because it happened well before that. Supposedly, a stairway or a portal was found by some archaeologists in Iraq, which modern day Iraq is essentially Babylon, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. That is modern day Iraq. And supposedly Saddam Hussein had started to look into Nebuchadnezzar and started to research and come up with a very sinister plan. And when we found out about it through archaeologists, well, we're not going to let that happen, immediately we wanted that power. And who pulled the strings on that? Those 13 families already knew that this stuff was there. Those archaeologists, they were allowed to share that information with the powers that be, or the powers on the strings in America. So I found this. I'm not going to get too in depth on the stairway today, the portal today, because it would be like a 3-hour upload. I might work on it and just have like a super long upload one day for you guys on this. But I found this, and this is very interesting because it goes along with the that trade agreement here. You give us access to your women, men, children, so we can perform these diabolical and just demonic genetic tests and experimentation on, and we'll give you some weapons, just like when the fallen angels came to earth and started teaching humans things that God did not want us to know. And essentially it's just a modern day version of that. And that's why what happened then? A great flood. What happened then? The deluge. That's what's going to happen now. End of days. That's why we talk about, or so many people talk about, it is the end of days. Well, I don't think people really realize how close we are. It's just starting, in time comparison to, 150 years, 200 years is nothing in relative time to God and the demons and angels and immortal creatures. Thousands of years is nothing to them. But to us, it's so when I say we are just kind of getting into it, not really. It's been going on for 100 years now, maybe more, a little more, since those agreements. But just some just food for thought. Think about that, and because I think about it all the time, and it's scary. But I found this. Alien weapon destroyed Abrams tank in Iraq. United States Army munitions experts at the Detroit Arsenal in Warren, Michigan, are investigating a mysterious new weapon that fires a projectile the size of a pencil eraser that was used by Iraqi insurgents to knock out an M1 Abrams main battle tank in Baghdad. Shortly before the dawn of Thursday, August 28, 2003, a routine patrol in Baghdad was hit by something, according to a report by Terry Hughes, a technical representative from the Rock Island Arsenal in Illinois. The yellow metal round penetrated the tank's armor skirting and hull, tore through the gunner's seat back, and then took out vital equipment, disabling the tank before burying itself in the opposite wall in a hole nearly 2 inches or 5 centimeters deep. The 4-member crew of the 69-ton, $4.3 million Abrams survived the hit, although the gunner and the tank commander were hit by flying bits of metal. It seems clear that the projectile of yellow molten metal is what caused the damage, but what weapon fires such a round, and precisely what sort of round is it, remains a mystery. Whatever penetrated the tank created enough heat inside that hull to activate the vehicle's halon firefighting system, according to Don Harrows, spokesperson for the Army's Program Evaluation Office for Ground Combat Systems. The incident happened August 28th while the tank was on patrol in Baghdad. The investigation into the weapon was used in the attack is not yet complete, he said. There have been no reports of any other mysterious projectile being fired at the United States equipment before or since the 28th. But there are fear that Iraqi insurgents may possess some kind of secret weapon. The Army Tank Automotive and Armament Command is conducting the investigation, is withholding all information concerning it, including what process has been made. Market rumors in Iraq claim that Saddam's supposed allies, the Zarzi alien, have given futuristic weapons to Ba'athist commandos who are fanatically loyal to the ousted dictator. According to the market tales, the UFO crashed in Iraq either during the first Gulf War in 91 or in December of 98. The survivors were then brought before Saddam, who gave them sanctuary in Iraq. In return, the aliens used their technology to build several large underground bases for Saddam and to provide the help he needed to ward off his enemies, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Israel. I would say this happened before because, well, never mind. During late 2002 and early 2003, the aliens were thought to be staying in an underground base in Zarzi, or at the centuries-old fortress Khalat al-Junde, both located in Azab, Assagar, Little Zab River Valley in northern Iraq. Zarzi was bombed at the beginning of the Gulf War in March of 2003. Uday, Saddam's son, who was killed in 2003, July, asked the aliens for weapons of the Dronaparva to strike directly at the United States. Mohammed Dade El Hate reports. However, the aliens turned down his request. But Mohammed thinks Uday's father might have been slightly more persuasive. Now there is talk about the Ba'athists of Dogman guns. Saddam was given only a few, and these he entrusts only to men who have proven their loyalty to him. He adds, obviously, the aliens do not trust Saddam, else they would have given him much more. But the handful he has helped reduce the Anglo-American coalition advantage in armor and aircraft. A Dogman gun looks like what Americans call a sawed-off shotgun, but with a pistol grip. The muzzle is very wide and resembles a vacuum cleaner. An odd-looking box of electronic bulges out just above the trigger. There is a laser sighting system built right into the front of the electric box. Unlike a conventional firearm, which uses a chemical explosion to send the projectile on its way, the gun reportedly uses electromagnetic energy to hurl the projectile. The Baathists have seen these weapons hurl lightning bolts, but ones the aliens gave them cannot do that. So I ended up looking up, I ended up wanting to see if this like really occurred, and sure enough, it really did. It's just, things that we don't hear about, which is insane. This is what they tell us. An M1 Abrams tank on routine patrol in Baghdad was hit by an unknown projectile on August 28, 2003. The attack occurred shortly before dawn. Army officials are unsure at the time what caused the damage of a 69-ton tank. This was reportedly one of only 2 Abrams tanks disabled by enemy fire during the war. The other Abrams disabled in Iraq that year was reportedly hit by an RPG-7. According to reports, experts believe the projectile that damaged the tank on August 28th of 2003 was not an RPG, but likely something new. This incident caused mystery and anxiety among tank drivers. The tank's critical components were all hit and disabled. So there is just a lot of, it's, put it this way, you are talking about one of the coolest, most advanced tanks America has, and it got stopped by something the size of that pen clicky, so right there is enough to say, maybe there is something more involved. I want to share now I want to get into some other stuff and then keep going back and forth. I just wanted to share that with you because imagine if they did trust him like they trusted Truman, Eisenhower. They gave us a nuclear bomb, and I think after we used it, I don't think they liked us that much anymore, so this is quite the interesting experience. I had a 20 to 30 minute conversation with a female subscriber, and she wanted to share something because of the upload I did a couple days ago about the Maryland Goatman. And she had an experience with the Poplick Goatman and a Dogman. So what ended up occurring back in May, we're going to just call this woman Sarah. She did not want to be mentioned. But back in May, her friend had been struck by a train on the Poplick trestles, looking for the Poplick Goatman. And they had, it was a very traumatic experience. This young woman that passed, Savannah Bright, was well loved, and just kind of revered by the town. She was a young woman with the full of life and the world at the tip of her fingers. Just so young, and so in July 21st of 2019, Sarah and a few of her friends decided to go and kind of remember her. They had ended up going to the Poplick Park or Floyd's Fork area, and they kind of walked instead of even messing with the Goatman Bridge or the trestles. They used the Poplick Road, South Poplick Road, and so that night, so they had done their kind of memorial remembrance of her. They're teens, just having a memorial or something special to them. Of course, being young in a small rural Louisville, Kentucky, that area, they were going to go and have some alcohol and smoke a little weed, and they proceeded to go down this South Poplick Road and go into the woods between Poplick Creek and Poplick Road, South Poplick Road. They had this little hangout area that's about a mile, she said, about a mile, maybe a mile and a half after the trestle. And it is literally the road and the creek. And there's just this section of woods. Very isolated, very quiet area. So they are in there. They're, got a little fire going, smoking some weed, drinking, which she adamantly, states is the weed did not, none of us were hallucinating. We all had smoked weed and drank alcohol before. This was something that occurred, and it was not occurring because we were using weed and drinking. So they had been there for, about an hour, and not long, but long enough to build a fire and, just hang out and talk. And, it wasn't like a rager. That's the thing. She said it was not like some raging party. It was the five of us. We were just mainly smoking weed. There was a little bit of alcohol. We weren't just, it was just us mourning our friend. And as we're sitting there, we are facing, our backs are to the roadside. You can't see the road from where they are, nor can you see the creek from where they are. They're kind of set in the middle of these woods. You can hear the creek faintly, and you can hear the mild traffic that goes up that road at night. And, they're just talking, chatting, yada, yada. And all of a sudden, they hear this splash, this loud splash. They kind of stop what they're talking about, stop what they're doing, because it sounded like possibly someone had gotten pushed into the water, or when someone just jumps in. It was very, very loud. On top of, it wasn't just a singular splash. It was, yes, one continuous noise, but it seemed like there was two of something hitting the water almost simultaneously. They shut up immediately and focus all of their attention right to this area of the creek. And, you know, you've got woods beyond. You've got this little clearing. And there's enough light coming from the fire so they can all see each other. She remembers looking to her left and right and seeing all of her friends' facial expressions were just what hers was shock and curiosity. After that splash, like seconds later, you hear these just loud growls, and some sort of kind of a shriek with a guttural noise behind it coming from whatever made that initial shriek. And it was not a growl. It was just this almost like louder version of the shriek, but deeper in bass. And then you can hear more growling, and you hear this, what she described as a bleat or whatever a goat would make if it had gotten stuck in something, like a baby goat gets stuck in, its head gets stuck in like a fence and it kind of can't get its head out. It kind of makes that bleating noise. They all look at each other because they could all immediately identify that noise with what the same exact way she just described it. A baby goat gets its head kind of stuck in a fence, you know, if you're feeding it or something, and it makes that noise. They all look at each other, kind of shocked. A few of them are standing up now. She thinks it was the guys that were standing up, kind of. She couldn't figure out if they were going to run or if they were just standing up to kind of get a better view of what was going on. But she remembers her and her two girlfriends that were there were just kind of stationary and almost frozen. You keep continuously hearing a growl. You hear a lot of ruckus, and the initial noise, the shriek, and that kind of bassy guttural noise after, and then that bleating noise. You can hear what sounds like growl and a fight, some sort of altercation. There were sticks being broke. There was just, you know, you could hear on the shore, not shore, but on the embankment of the Popelet Creek, there are rocks. So you could hear rocks, you know, it was a loud commotion. And periodically a car would go down the road and you'd hear the car over the noise. So when that car would initially go by and it was silent again, they could hear, and it seemed like it was getting just a little closer. And all of a sudden you hear this just loud kind of guttural grunt or groan, and a thud, and then you hear what sounds like something running through the woods, quadruped, coming up into the little clearing area. They did not make this little clearing area natural clearing, but it's a rather large natural clearing. And they all hear it come into the opening. They're maybe 60, 70 feet away from where this thing came out. They all turn their heads, and what they see is a large, what looks to be a goat that is standing quadruped. It came running out of the woods quadruped. It turns and looks at them with just these red, hellfired eyes. It makes this bleeding noise and takes off and runs into the woods and then towards South Pope Lick Road. They're not hearing any traffic, so, but there has been numerous sightings of this Pope Lick Goatman all along that region. As they are talking amongst themselves and excitedly talking amongst themselves now, because they had just witnessed the Pope Lick Goatman come out of the woods off of the Pope Lick Creek into the clearing, stare directly at them, and run quadruped. And they instantly knew because of its red eyes. Had it not had red eyes, they might have thought it was just this abnormally large goat. Quite possibly they might have thought it was a cow, because that's how big it was. It was huge. It was not a goat. It looked like a goat, but about the size of a cow, and not fat. And it just tore ass out of there. They're wildly excited, talking, not excited happy, but excited like holy shit, when they hear what sounds like a bulldozer coming through those woods. And what emerges beyond those woods, kind of almost right where that Goatman just came out of, was this enormous Dogman. Enormous. They called it the werewolf. They called it, they had no name for it. They just said this just enormous werewolf. And it comes out of the clearing. It immediately is staring at them as it's coming up into the clearing. They've got their fire going still. It is not, they are not hiding in the dark. By now, the girls have now stood. The guys are standing there. They're all staring at this thing. As it comes out of the woods, it stops right at that wood line, that wood line where it just came out of. You've got the clearing and then the wood line to where that Goatman had run, and then South Pope Lick Road, and then more woods. So it stops as it's right there. It almost looked like it hesitated. She said it looked almost like it was, do I want to expose myself? And it stared at them, a totally different color red eyes. She said these were more of a yellowish orange, but still looked, just like fire was just pouring out of this creature's eyes. As it stood there for seconds, which seemed like minutes, it growled. As it had turned its head, it is now growling this kind of just this really loud but low in bass, where they could feel it in their bodies. Their bodies were like resonating and vibrating from this growling. It was so loud. It stops the growl and then drops to all fours for some reason and runs across the clearing. And as it hits the next patch of woods, that next wood line, it stands up. So it was almost like a waste of energy or time. Like they had already seen it. Maybe it had dropped to quadruped. This is her saying it. Maybe it had dropped to quadruped in hopes of us thinking that, what we had just seen was a natural canine or something, which was a little smaller than that Goatman, that as it ran quadruped. The Dogman was obviously a little smaller than a freaking cow or quadruped. Hits that next wood line, stands up again, turns and looks at them like almost over its shoulder to look back at them. By now, how the kids are, they're kind of turned and looking at this creature like, holy cow, like just hands are up, like fright, frozen, fear, just every kind of emotion. And it just lets out this growl and then a gruff, kind of like this, like just, but loud, and then proceeds to run through those woods. They hear what sounds like a vehicle coming, not from the Poplick Park area, but the opposite way. So if this vehicle was going, and when they heard the vehicle, they heard its horn just like blaring. It was an air horn, something that you'd hear in a tractor trailer or a large truck to like a delivery truck, and they can hear it just railing on its horn, and they hear it lock up its brakes. This dirt, 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 when it, how the tires make that noise. And then they hear a howl, and then they hear the truck proceed to take off. They, for a second, thought they heard the driver kind of yell something like, well, what the hell was that? Or just something out of the ordinary. They did not anticipate hearing another voice coming from that area. So they hear that, and once again, they're not sure. She's not sure if it was the driver of the truck. They couldn't see the truck. They could hear a large vehicle. The horn was different than any kind of commuter vehicle, like a car or a pickup truck. It was just this loud, and on top of it being a very loud diesel engine. And no, not a diesel pickup, like a truck, tractor trailer. They sit there for a good 15-20 more minutes and trying to figure out, like, okay, we gotta walk through the woods now to get to South Poplick, and then we've got to walk back to where our vehicles are parked, which is 20-30 minutes. And their walk was absolutely terrifying. Nothing happened. They didn't hear any more. They saw movement off when they came out into the other side of the woods there. They get to their car and they proceed to go home. Some of the kids had to get dropped off, and then Sarah finally makes it to her home. And throughout that period of next couple of days, they had, when teens see something or hear something, it's like wildfire. Gossip is like wildfire. Come to find out that supposedly that night, there was a person who had raised, had a small kind of stock of animal chickens, a couple sheep, not a lot, a couple goat, and, a horse or two. Not a farm, but just you got a lot of land and you live in Kentucky, you're going to have animals. That's what I would do if I had, a lot of land, some money, hell. So I guess what they ended up hearing was when that person woke up in the middle of the night to hear commotion in their backyard towards where their pen is. They had like this kind of shed built with a fence, and that's where the goat sheep would be, and use that kind of shed as like a home hideout, whatever. And chickens kind of roamed free. Horses were in their own kind of barn area, but that's where the goats and the sheep were. So come to find out, the guy hears a bunch of noise and runs out thinking coyote. And as he gets out, he sees what looks like, and he said, to me, it looked like, this is Sarah telling me that what this gentleman said, it looks almost like what I thought was the Goatman, the Poplik Goatman. But as I saw it walking away, and it had one of my sheep, as I saw it running into the next set of woods, was a canine-like creature. The second I saw this tail is when I knew it wasn't the Goatman. So there was just rumor going on. Like I said, someone sees something in one of these small communities, and Louisville's a large city, but they're small communities. It's the South, I've always said it. I think people that I've met from the South are some of the nicest folk ever. Just will give you the shirt off their back, just beautiful people. He realized that this was not the Poplik Goatman, but in fact this was something much different, and possibly just as or more dangerous, because it had trying to get into this shed, even though the door on one side was open with a ramp going in. There's another door off to the side. It had ripped the door. Instead of going in an open door area, it ripped the door off and grabbed one of these sheep and ran with it. After that, she had not heard any other sightings at that point. And now 6 years ago, she 6 years have obviously passed, and she's in her early 20s now. She's heard a few of her friends talk about, they saw something on the trestle, and people still go up to that area, even though numerous people have died there. So it's the Poplik Goatman / Dogman experience. Now I want to share with you something that I found so interesting, so baffling, a story that is much more than it seems, because of the details in the experience and story 5. So back in 1980, in a area, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, an area called Duncan, there's a 30-something-year-old man named Granger Taylor. And this guy is a mechanical genius. Just super, super smart. Still lives with mom and dad. The more I thought about him and what he did for his pastime was, being a mechanical genius, and yes, he was a mechanical genius. Like, this guy could build anything. He had just, he had built a train. There was an old discarded train engine that he got working again. He had this kind of beat up Datsun pickup truck. So he had this beat up Datsun, and this is important. There's key things to this story to hear and remember. He had not really restored. He had made a beat up Datsun run again, and he painted it this just absurd pink color. Him and his buddy Rob had painted it this just weird Pepto-Bismol pink. And he'd drive it around town, and people would see it and be like, "What the hell is that?" And they'd be like, "Oh, it's just Granger." And so thinking about all this, I'm like, it sounds like this poor guy, in the 80s, is autistic, super, super smart, but yet lacking in social skills, lacking in any other kind of life skills, but can fix a freaking train engine and get it to, And so one night, he's hanging out with his buddy, and he had like a small select group of friends. His sister, his mom and dad absolutely adored him. Granger was just a great guy, not not a liar, not any kind of troublemaker, just misunderstood, and that's why another reason why I believe he was autistic. Now, he looks at his buddy and he goes, "I had a freaking crazy dream." And his buddy, being young, goes, thinking, "Girls, tell me." Says, "I was visited by aliens." And he's like, okay, aliens? Like, that's really like aliens? And so he tells him, they're going to come back and talk to me and this and that. And but they talked about this trip. And, I might take a trip with him. So time goes by. He, after this dream, what he interpreted as a dream, he sees these old 1980s, late 70s satellite dishes. They're like 20 feet wide in circumference, just huge metal dishes. Not the like late 80, early 90 satellite dishes that were like 6 foot and kind of flimsy. These were freaking monstrous. And he had gotten 2 of them, and then had gotten this kind of drum, this large drum, and cut it and made a UFO on stilts, like welded it together. And so imagine a bottom dish with like this huge kind of drum cut in half, fashioned on that, welded, and then that next one, there's a doorway to it. It's on stilts. He's got a stairway going up to it. They found some old couches and shit, and that was Granger's hangout. That was his safe spot. Being that he still lived with mom and dad, that was his place. And everyone, his very close knit group of friends, 3 or 4, would all hang out with him and stuff, and watch him create things. And if he was bored, he'd be like, "I need a project." And so he starts to kind of do any kind of project he can find to keep himself busy. And one night he has another dream, and he wakes up and he tells his buddy, the next day about, hey, I was invited on this trip and it's going to take 42 weeks to get to their home planet. They want me to go with them. They want me to just learn from them. And his buddy's like, huh? And he gives them an exact day. He gives them the November 29th, 1980 is when I'm leaving. And everyone, of course, is like, okay, Granger, sure shit, buddy, So as time goes by, he's told his parents, he's told his sister, his close friends, his close friend Robert told his parents and stuff. And he buys a will and testament. And he fills the will and testament out. And in the place of where it says, in case of death, he crosses that out and puts departure. And he then, the night of it. So anyway, what he said was, they're coming on November 29th, 1980. It's going to be the storm of the century. This is like a month before this, okay? 1980. Weather Channel didn't exist. So he's making his plans and arrangements, and as he's, talking to his friends about leaving and just excited, just really excited. He goes and tells everyone by November 29th comes. November 29th, 1980 comes. And he goes and tells his friends goodbye, his, sister and mom and dad, I'm leaving, I'm going on a special journey. His mom was actually out of town on the 29th. So I'm going to go on this journey, but, it'll take 42 weeks. I'll spend some time and then I'll be back. Trust me. And so for like the first 42 weeks, so he writes this note. And this is the note right here. That's his penmanship. So he writes this. Dear Mother and Father, 29/11/80. I have gone away to walk aboard an alien spaceship. As reoccurring dreams assured a 42-month interstellar voyage to explore the vast universe, then return. I am leaving behind all of my possessions to you, as I will no longer will require the use of any. Please use my instructions in my will at the guide to help. Love, Granger. So during all of this, before he goes on this, the day he is leaving, his friend Rob, his best friend, he tries to explain, he's like, well, I'll be waiting for you. Granger, I'll be here waiting for you. And Granger looks at him and says, even though it's 42 months there, and I'll spend some time there, and then in 42 months back, he goes, it's going to be, you are not going to be alive. Your children, your children's children, your grandchildren's grandchildren won't be alive. He goes, what they're going to do, it takes 100,000 years. And I've talked about this. Like, it's from one side of the universe or the galaxy to the other side. Our galaxy. It's like 100,000 light years. I think. Yeah, 100,000 light years. So it's 100,000 years to this planet. But what essentially Granger told him was they are going to bend. So here's their planet. Here's Earth. They are going to bend space and time to get there. People weren't talking about bending space or time back then. You know, it wasn't something like we heard a lot about. So the next day, after the storm of the century, that's how the paper listed it, there's no more Granger. Granger's gone. His truck's gone, though, but no sign of him. Police set up this huge, let's look for Granger, and they do. People are waiting for him to come back at 42 months, not understanding the concept of 84 months plus maybe 6 months, whatever. 5 years later, they find this huge hole in the earth on this mountain. And they find parts to a truck, right? A Datsun truck. Police immediately, we found the missing man. His truck was found blown up. There's a mag rim up there. He must have taken some dynamite from his friend's father and this and that. And he blew his truck up. And the mag rim is in the tire, or mag rim is in the tree. And, you know, his friends and close family looked at the pictures of the area. The Datsun tailgate that was found, yes, it was a Datsun, but the tailgate that was found was blue. Granger's truck didn't have mag rims on it. It had like aluminum rims. You know, they said the VIN number, a portion of the VIN number matched. A portion. That's, you know, not hard to do. And his friends, his best friend Rob, is in New Granger the most. He was not wanting to end anything. You know, and the police used this as he was lonely. He wrote a classified. 30-something-year-old man, intelligent, owns a interesting and fascinating museum, which he did. He had this little museum thing set up with his train and all that other stuff that he built. Is looking for companionship, ages, this, and that. And they said because he had social issues, that's why he did it. Anyone that knows him knows he didn't do it. And then to say a blue Datsun is this pink Datsun. One, the Datsun that they had wasn't pink or wasn't blue. It was like this greenish black color. It was like, so the police set this up so everyone would stop talking about Granger leaving with the aliens. There were people contacting Rob and all of his friends saying, hey, don't talk about Granger anymore. Stop discussing this. You can't, you know, so just, you know, so was that the FBI? Yeah, probably. And, you know, Granger's mom passed away, not thinking that her son was ever coming back, thinking that her son was going to come back, and she was adamant about it, saying, my son is not a liar. He will be back if he says he's going to be back. So in 99,980 years, Granger will be back. I don't know, just a crazy story, and you just like cover up, you know, and just so many weird things, like him saying "Storm of the Century," and in the classified, you know, it was more or less he was autistic. He didn't know how to live in today's world, or that time's world. You know, he was living in Granger's world, but he was happy. So why would he do that? He didn't. He went with, I believe it. I believe that, and pretty intense story, and it's sad. And if you look it up, you can look up Granger Taylor, Vancouver, Duncan, Vancouver Island, Granger Taylor. And the story's there, and it's tragic. So, moving on. Final look-see here is probably one of my favorite Luciferian agenda things to talk about. Dulce. I am so fascinated by that place. And, Belle is going to be 18 soon, and I'm looking forward to possibly taking a trip out there. This is a kind of a deep probe into information that many of us have not heard. There's a lot of information out there, but a lot of it is not backed by anybody, almost just like tossed up in the air, and like when you throw shit at a wall to see if it sticks. Legends from different parts of the globe all tell of an underworld inhabited by mystical beings of varied forms. There is a reptilian race still residing to this day underground, hidden away in dark crevices of the earth and in depths of the ocean. Evidence supporting this proclamation is also available through reports and historical documentation. In the 60s, a subterranean nuclear blast occurred about 30 miles southwest of Dulce, New Mexico, right off of US 64. The nuclear blast was conducted under the umbrella of Project Plowshare and was named Gas Buggy. It has recently been alleged that this particular subsurface nuclear blast was used to create a hollowed-out chute or chimney for development of a substation for a super-secret tunnel system attached to an underground Black Book project base. According to the infamous Thomas Costello, a former Dulce-based security technician, this particular underworld city is a highly secret base operated by humans as well as reptilian aliens and their caste workers, the commonly encountered Greys. It is here apparently that a multitude of experimentation projects are carried out, primarily genetic experimentations on kidnapped men, women, and children. There are a myriad of other specific or specialty science projects taking place at Dulce Base, including, but not limited to, atomic manipulation, cloning, studies of the human aura, advanced mind control applications, animal and human crossbreeding, making chimera, visual and audio wiretapping, and the list does go on. Dulce, New Mexico is a strange place indeed. It's a sleepy little town perched upon the Archuleta Mesa, just south of the Colorado border in northern New Mexico. Tourists passing through sometimes see little more life in the town other than that of a scruffy dog lazily spreading out along the side of the road. Some claim upon entering the town black vehicles with heavily tinted windows tailgate them until they are outside of the limits, heading out of Dodge. In addition, several other sources who wish to remain nameless report oddities in their work with Operation Plowshare during the 60s. The project was created under the guise of the use of atomic bombs during peacetime and forged ahead under the umbrella of natural gas exploration. In fact, several of these multi-kiloton blasts were used as a rapid way of developing huge subsurface chambers for facility development. It is reported that the technology to clean radiation is available and already in use in such projects. when there was a lecture Friday, the 13th of 1993 in Vegas. For the first time made public the floor plans of levels 1 and 6 of Dulce Base. These floor plans were reproduced from the originals that were handed to Thomas Castiello's friend. This friend did not previously release the floor plans because they were being used as a verification device to the claims of abductees that say they were there. To date, the originals have verified and disproved many stories circulating the field in UFOlogy. This friend of Thomas Castiello's, however, believes that it is time to begin to reveal the missing pieces. The Dulce Base floor plan was illustrated as per the originals by Castiello, and I released it. During my lecture in Vegas is a layout when inspected carefully appears to be extremely strategically planned. From a vertical viewpoint, it resembles a wheel with a central hub and corridors radiating outward like spokes. This hub is the local point of the entire base. It is surrounded by central security and extends through all levels of the base. There's a core to the Achilles heel of the entire facility. It probably contains fiber optic communications and power lines. This would justify its highly guarded and central location, as well as explain its vertical continuation through all levels. With all communication lines and power lines focused toward the hub, it is possible that any one level could be completely locked down by its own security and security hubs from either above or below its own level. This would provide maximum control. The spokes or corridors radiating away from this central hub lead to numerous other labs in 5 different directions. Connect the spokes, and a pentagon is revealed. This base resembles the layout of the Pentagon in DC, complete with halls, walls, and military insignia. Since we don't have the exact heading of these corridors, magnetic alignments are impulses to determine. When viewed laterally, its appearance takes on a look of a tree with a trunk at the center, and the floor plans extend outward like branches. If this facility of science, then one could easily say that its lateral appearance is like that of the tree of knowledge. Interesting, right? These grays, these demons, these alien/demons create a base. And I even though the government has military and government officials working there, or personnel, not officials, personnel, it was not built by them. It was built by the aliens. That's why I don't like the deep underground military base or dumb. I after researching so much, I hate that name actually, because it's such a dumb acronym. DUMBs, deep underground military bases. Well, what were they before the military got involved? They were just underground facilities. You know, why involve an offshoot of a government, the terrifying government that has nothing to do with it? And it was purposely designed this way, or does it happen in coincidence? The overall design of the facility reminds one of a multi-stack subterranean Hopi Indian cavity, although I believe that is somewhat of a disservice to the Hopi to even speak of it in association with the Tree of Horrors, with the Cave of Horrors, association with the Cave of Horrors, like the Dulce base, its similarity in design should never be forgotten. In 61, Castello was a young sergeant stationed at Nellis Air Force Base near Vegas. His job was a military photographer, top secret clearance. He was later transferred to West Virginia, where he trained in advanced intelligence photography. He worked aside an undisclosed underground facility, and due to the nature of his new assignment, his clearance was now upgraded to TS-1V. He remained in the Air Force as a photographer till 71, at which time he was offered a job with Rand Corporation as a security tech, and so specialist at Dulce. 77, he gets transferred to Santa Fe, New Mexico, where his pay raise is significant, and he has a security clearance, which is upgraded to Ultra 7. He escorts visitors to their destinations. Once arriving at Dulce, Thomas and several other new recruits attend a mandatory meeting where they are introduced to the big lie. He did his job. At his first encounters with an actual gray and reptilian in the base were exhilarating, but soon he became acutely aware of it all, what was not what it appeared to be. Thomas slowly began to sense that there was something underlying here, a tension existing. Later, he reports seeing laboratories that are investigating the following: energy fields in humans, auroric energy fields in humans, astral or spirit level voyaging and manipulation, psi studies, advanced mind control analysis and application, human brain memory cognition, and transfer, matter manipulation, human and alien embryonic cloning, rapid human body replicating. So cloning human and alien, which cloning human and alien is what? Creating crawlers? Shit, yeah, they are. Shit, yeah, they are. So this is the information that really is never spoken of. During the initial period of the invasion, the battle, Thomas was able to relay quite a bit of information about what was happening behind the scenes and what plans were being made by the government and the Greys. Some of it has been withheld by his closest friends as control device in order to authenticate or invalidate some abductee stories and research findings. Believe me, there are some very well-known people who make a living from selling this type of information, and that they had been lying through their teeth about their experiences. Perhaps the only way to tell for certain would be to do this. The unsung hero, Paul Benowitz, suggests that it has made a full-scale military assault on the base, conquer the aliens, whether they're genetic creations or true alien or both, and bring all activities there under full congressional oversight. I am sure that there will be no lack of potential military recruits for type of an assault. After all, tens of thousands of young American men have in the past been sent off to die and protect the CIA drug running ops in Golden Triangle, to give their lives to the United States or the United Nations, the New World Order, or in wars that were never meant to be won, such as Korea and Vietnam. So, Legends from different parts of the globe all tell of an underworld inhabited by mystical beings in varied forms. There is a reptilian race that still lives underground, hidden away in these dark crevices of the earth and in depths of the ocean. The evidence supporting this proclamation is also available through recent reports and historical documentation. If you really want to see the big show, don't look above your head. Look below. So a lot of just crazy information right there. Sarah's experience with the Pope-like goat monster or Goatman and a Dogman. Granger Taylor. If you guys want to look into the Granger Taylor story, really type in Duncan, Vancouver, British Island, or Duncan, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Granger Taylor. And there is multitudes of sites just talking about his disappearance. It's freaking crazy. It's crazy. Aliens giving our enemies weapons to combat us. And, you know, like if they have that to give out for free, imagine what they could really do. Nope. I don't ever want to. With that, my friends, thank you for supporting this channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.